Imagine standing at a mountain pass at 4176 meters above sea level. The road behind you has climbed through forest cloud and alpine meadow. Before you, the Himalayan peaks stretch in every direction, wide, immense, impossibly clean against a blue sky that seems closer than it should. A frozen lake sits below the pass, its surface catching the light like a mirror. In the distance, barely visible, prayer flags flutter in the wind above a monastery tucked into the folds of the mountain. You are in India, but you could be forgiven for thinking you are somewhere else entirely. Now come down from that pass. Follow a river valley south and east through a dense subtropical forest, thick with orchards and ferns. The trees are enormous. The air is loud with birds. Over 500 species have been recorded here. You pass through a village where women in traditional dresses are weaving cloth on handlooms outside their homes. A man invites you in for rice beer served in a bamboo cup. You don't know his language, he doesn't know yours, but the hospitality is absolute. This is Arunachal Pradesh, the land of the dawn-lit mountains, the first place in India to receive the morning sun, and one of the most remote, most biodiverse, most culturally extraordinary places on the face of this earth. Hello and welcome back to Around India in Half an Hour. I'm Ray and this is episode 2. Last week we were in Andhra Pradesh, rice paddies, coastal temples, the spiciest food in India, and the most visited shrine on the planet. This week we travel as far as you can go in the opposite direction, from the southeastern coast to the far northeastern corner, from sea level to the Himalayas, from the warm Bay of Bengal to the cold shadow of Tibet. Arunachal Pradesh. It is the largest state in northeastern India. It shares borders with 3 countries, Bhutan, China and Myanmar. It is home to over 26 major tribes and more than 100 sub-tribes, each with their own language, their own rituals, their own relationship with the land. It contains some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in India, some of the most intact forest in Asia, and one of the great Buddhist monasteries of the world. It is also, as of right now, claimed by China. The dispute is ongoing, politically charged, and worth understanding. We'll get there. But first, the land. Arunachal Pradesh covers 83,743 square kilometers, making it the largest state in the entire northeastern region of India and the 14th largest state in the country. To give you a sense of scale, it is larger than Sri Lanka, larger than Ireland, larger than Austria, and yet its population is barely 1.6 million people, one of the least densely populated states in India. Most of it is mountain, forest, or river valley. The human footprint is light. The name Arunachal Pradesh translates as land of the dawn-lit mountains. Aruna meaning the reddish glow of dawn, Achal meaning mountain, Pradesh meaning land or state. It is the easternmost state in India, and because of that position at the edge of the subcontinent, it is the first part of the country to receive sunlight each morning. Some parts of Arunachal Pradesh see sunrise nearly 2 hours before Mumbai does. That is a remarkable geographic fact. The terrain rises dramatically from south to north. At the southern edge, where Arunachal Pradesh meets Assam, the land is low, river plains and foothills, warm and lush. As you move north, the elevation climbs quickly and relentlessly. The state passes through several distinct ecological zones: subtropical broadleaf forest in the lower reaches, temperate forest in the middle elevations, alpine meadow above the tree line, and finally the permanent snow and glaciers of the high Himalayas along the northern border. The elevation range is extraordinary, from under 100 meters in the south to over 5,500 meters in the north. The rivers are one of the defining features of this landscape. The great Brahmaputra, called the Siang in Arunachal Pradesh, enters India from Tibet as a wild, powerful river and carves a dramatic gorge through the mountains before emerging into the plains of Assam. Other major rivers include the Kameng, the Subansiri, the Lohit, and the Tirap, all tributaries of the Brahmaputra, all fast flowing, many navigable only by the most experienced boat handlers. These rivers have shaped the geography, the transport networks, and the very identities of the tribes who live along the river banks. The biodiversity of Arunachal Pradesh is almost beyond comprehension. The forests here are among the most biodiverse in Asia, an extraordinary confluence of Himalayan, Southeast Asian, and Indo-Burmese ecological zones. Over 5,000 plant species, more than 500 bird species, including the rare Bugan leocicla, a species discovered only in 1995 and found nowhere else on Earth. Over 85 terrestrial mammal species, including the clouded leopard, the snow leopard, the red panda, the Himalayan black bear, the gaur, which the tribes of Arunachal call the Mithun and regard as sacred, and the tiger. Namdapha National Park in the east of the state is one of the few places on earth where four big cat species, tiger, leopard, clouded leopard, and snow leopard, share the same habitat. That is a truly extraordinary ecological fact. The forests of Arunachal Pradesh are also the world's largest repository of wild orchid species. Over 500, in fact over 600 orchid species have been recorded here. Walking through a forest in Arunachal in spring is, by all accounts, an almost hallucinatory experience. Color and fragrance everywhere, in forms you have never seen before. Arunachal Pradesh shares its borders with Assam and Nagaland within India, and with three countries internationally: Bhutan to the west, China to the north, and Myanmar to the east. The border with Bhutan in the west is broadly uncontested and peaceful. The border with Myanmar in the east is remote, forested, and porous. The tribal peoples of the Tirap and Changlang districts have cultural and familial ties that predate any international boundaries. And then there is the border with China. This is where things get complicated and important and worth understanding carefully. China claims approximately 90,000 square kilometers of Arunachal Pradesh, the vast majority of the state, as its own territory, calling it South Tibet or Zannan. China does not recognize Indian sovereignty over Arunachal Pradesh and periodically issues standardized Chinese names for towns and locations within the state, as a way of asserting its cartographic claim. The heart of the dispute is the McMahon Line, a boundary drawn in 1914 during the Simla Convention between British India and Tibet. The line was drawn by Sir Henry McMahon, the British Foreign Secretary, and placed Arunachal Pradesh firmly within British Indian territory. China was not a party to the Simla Convention and has never accepted the McMahon Line as legitimate, arguing it was an illegal imposition of colonial power. The most intensely disputed part of this dispute is Tawang, the town and district in the far northwest of Arunachal Pradesh, home to the great Tawang Monastery. China argues that Tawang has deep and historical and religious ties to Tibet, and the Dalai Lama's seat in Lhasa, and that it should therefore be part of Chinese controlled territory. The dispute reached its most violent point during the 1962 Sino-Indian War. Chinese forces crossed the McMahon Line in October 1962, advancing rapidly through the state in a devastating offense. Indian forces were unprepared and outmatched. Chinese troops advanced to within striking distance of the Assam Plains before. In 1962, China unilaterally declared a ceasefire and withdrew its forces back behind the McMahon Line, keeping, however, the territory it had occupied in the western sector. Aksai Chin. The 1962 war left deep marks on Indian military thinking and on Arunachal Pradesh's strategic significance. Today, the state is heavily garrisoned. Roads and tunnels connecting it to the rest of India have been prioritized as national security infrastructure. The Sela Tunnel, completed in 2024, connects Tawang to the rest of Arunachal Pradesh through the Sela Pass, a route previously closed by snow for months every year. That tunnel is not just a road project, it is a statement of permanent intention. The dispute continues. In April 2026, China once again issued standardized Chinese names for locations in Arunachal Pradesh. India firmly rejected the move, as it always does. This is the reality of living in India's most strategically sensitive state. The history of human habitation in Arunachal Pradesh stretches back thousands of years, but it has been largely oral, preserved in the songs, rituals, and spoken traditions of the tribes who have lived in these mountains and valleys since ancient times. The ancient texts of India contain references to these lands. The Mahabharata and the Kalika Purana mention a region called the Prabhu Mountains in the northeast, associated with sages and divine forces. The legendary sage Parshuram is said to have meditated in the hills of what is now Arunachal Pradesh. These references are mythological rather than historical, but they speak to the deep antiquity of human presence here. The most cultural dominant ancient influence in the northwest of the state is Tibetan Buddhism. The Monpa people of Tawang have been practitioners of Tibetan Buddhism for over 1,000 years. Their cultural and religious and even administrative ties to the Dalai Lama's seat in Lhasa were strong and deep. The Tawang Monastery was founded in the 17th century by a Monpa monk named Merak Lama Laudre Gyatso, following instructions said to have been left by the 5th Dalai Lama. It sits at 3,048 meters above sea level, looks out over a vast valley and is one of the most magnificent religious buildings in India. Significantly, Tawang is also the birthplace of the sixth Dalai Lama, Sanyang Gyatso, born here in 1683. This is one of the reasons China considers Tawang to be so historically significant, and one of the reasons India holds it so firmly. In the colonial era, the British largely left this region alone. The terrain was too difficult, the tribes too autonomous, and the strategic benefit too unclear to justify the effort of administration. The Northeast Frontier Agency, NEFA, was the British designation for the region, a kind of administered buffer zone rather than a fully governed territory. British expeditions penetrated the interior only occasionally, and relations with the tribes ranged from wary to hostile. After Indian independence in 1947 and the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, the strategic importance of the region changed overnight. The Chinese annexation of Tibet in 1950 meant that India suddenly had a superpower on its northeastern doorstep. It was this context that Major Ralingnau Bob Khathing, an Assam Rifles officer from Nagaland, was sent to formally integrate Tawang into India. In February 1951, with a column of troops, but without a shot fired, he raised the Indian tricolor at Tawang. It was a remarkable act of peaceful statecraft achieved through diplomacy and the building of trust with the local Monpa population. Arunachal Pradesh became a union territory in 1972 and achieved full statehood on February 20, 1987, a date still celebrated across the state as Statehood Day. Arunachal Pradesh today has a population of around 1.59 million people, one of the smallest populations of any Indian state, in one of the largest areas. The capital is Itanagar, a small city by Indian standards, situated in the Papum Pear district in the south central part of the state. The state is governed as a scheduled tribe dominant region. Over 60% of the population belongs to one of the recognized scheduled tribes, and tribal customs, land rights, and governance structure plays a significant role in daily life. An inner line permit is required for all Indian citizens who are not from Arunachal Pradesh to enter the state, a regulation designed to protect the tribal character of the region from demographic change. Foreigners require a protected area permit. The economy is dominated by agriculture, forest-based livelihoods, and increasingly hydropower. Arunachal Pradesh sits on some of the most significant hydroelectric potential in Asia. The fast-flowing rivers descending from the Himalayas represent an enormous source of clean energy, and multiple large hydropower projects are at various stages of development. Tourism is growing steadily, particularly adventure tourism. Trekking, river rafting, wildlife safaris, and monastery visits. Itanagar has a small airport, and Tawang can be reached by road from Guwahati via a long but spectacular mountain drive. The linguistic landscape of Arunachal Pradesh is extraordinary. Over 50 languages are spoken in the state, belonging to multiple language families, Tibeto-Burman, Thai Kadai, and others. Many of these languages have no script of their own and are transmitted purely orally. Nyishi is the most widely spoken tribal language. Assamese and Hindi serve as lingua francas along with English, which is the medium of education. No episode about Arunachal Pradesh would be complete without spending time with its people. The extraordinary diversity of tribal communities who have called these mountains home for centuries. The Monpa people of Tawang are the most internationally known. Tibetan Buddhist in faith with a rich tradition of Thangka painting, mask dancing, and monastic art. Their festival, particularly Losar, the Tibetan New Year, are elaborate, joyful celebrations involving masked dances performed by monks that can last for days. The Adi people of the Siang Valley are the largest tribal group in the state. They are known for their animist faith called Donyi Polo, meaning sun moon, which venerates the sun and moon as supreme deities and emphasizes a harmonious relationship with nature. The Adi are also renowned for their weaving, their oral poetry, and the Ali I Ligang festival, an agricultural celebration marked by communal feasting, music, and dance. The Apatani people of the Ziro Valley are remarkable for their sustainable agricultural system, a complex, centuries old method of wet paddy cultivation integrated with fish farming using no chemical inputs that maintains extraordinary productivity in limited highland valley. This system is so ecologically intelligent that UNESCO has recognized it as a candidate for World Heritage status. The Apatanis have also historically practiced facial tattooing and the insertion of large wooden nose plugs by women, traditions that are now dying out among younger generations but are still seen among older women in Ziro. The Nyishi are the most numerous tribe in the state. They are traditionally animist, headhunters in ancient times, a practice long abandoned, and known for wearing an elaborate head dress called the bopia, a conical hat decorated with the beak and feathers of the great hornbill bird. The hornbill is so deeply embedded in the cultures of northeastern India that it has become a symbol of the entire region. The Nishi's relationship with it is particularly intimate. The Wancho and the Nokte tribes of the eastern Tirab district maintain traditions of elaborate wood carving, weaving, and a rich oral mythology. The Mishmi of the Far East are famous as skilled traders, historically linking the communities of Tibet, China, and lowland Assam through the mountain passes. Each tribe has its own festivals, its own marriage customs, its own code of community governance, its own relationship with the forest and the land. Living in Arunachal Pradesh has always meant living in a state of extraordinary cultural plurality. Arunachal Pradesh is small in population but has produced people of real significance. Major Ralingnau Bob Khatheng, the Naga officer who peacefully integrated Tawang into India in February 1951 without firing a single shot. His mission required extraordinary diplomatic skill. He had to reassure the Monpa people and the monastery authorities that India's intentions were peaceful and that their culture, religion, and way of life would be respected. He succeeded completely. He is one of the unsung heroes of Indian independent history, and Arunachal Pradesh's people remember him with deep gratitude. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru visited the region in 1954 and was so moved by its people and landscape that he described it with the phrase that has stayed with the state ever since: the land of the rising sun. While not a son of the state, his advocacy for the protection of tribal cultures and his naming of the region shaped its modern identity. Gegong Apang, born 1942, the longest serving chief minister in the history of Arunachal Pradesh, holding office for over 2 decades across multiple terms. He is credited with laying the foundation of modern infrastructure in the state and bringing it into the national mainstream while protecting tribal identities. Toko Teki, a celebrated Arunachali poet and writer who has worked to document and preserve the oral literary traditions of the Adi tribe. His work is part of a broader movement of tribal scholars and writers who are racing against time to record languages and stories that are at risk of disappearing. In sports, Arunachal Pradesh has been quietly producing boxers and archers of national quality, reflecting the hunting and combat traditions of the tribal communities translated into modern competitive sport. The food of Arunachal Pradesh is unlike anything else in India. It is mountain food, sustaining, smoky, deeply flavored, built around the ingredients that the forests, rivers, and terraced fields provide. It is the food of the people who live in a challenging environment and have evolved a cuisine perfectly adapted to it. The foundation of every meal is rice, but the way rice is prepared here is distinctive. Arunachali cooks often prepare rice inside hollow bamboo tubes, sealed at one end and placed over an open fire. The bamboo imparts a slight and light smoky, almost sweet flavor to the grains that is completely unique. Once you have eaten bamboo cooked rice, ordinary boiled rice seems to be missing something. Bamboo shoot is the defining ingredient of Arunachali cooking. Young bamboo shoots, sliced, fermented, dried, or cooked fresh, appear in almost every meal. Fermented bamboo shoot has a sharp, pungent, intensely savory smell that functions as a kind of seasoning itself. It is sour, earthy, and once you acquire a taste for it, deeply craveable. It goes into curries, into dal, into stir fries. It is preserved for the winter months when fresh shoots are unavailable. It is as fundamental to Arunachali cooking as the tomato is to Italian cooking. Smoked meat is another pillar. Pork, beef, chicken, and even fish are smoked over wood fires, sometimes for days, which preserves them and concentrates their flavor into an almost startling intensity. Smoked pork with fermented bamboo shoot is one of the signature combinations of Arunachali cuisine. Rich, pungent, warming, and perfect for a cold mountain evening. Pika pila, a pickle made from bamboo shoots marinated with chili and ginger. Intensely flavored, served alongside rice as a condiment. The Apatani people of Ziro are particularly known for their version of this. Perehak, a spicy chutney made from fermented soybeans and king chili, a variety of chili so hot it competes with the bhoot jolakia or ghost pepper for the title of world's hottest. king chili called B. jolakia locally is grown in the northeast and used with a restraint that suggests deep respect for its power. Pehak served with steamed rice is simple, earthy, and extraordinary. Apong, rice beer, brewed with fermenting rice and yeast, served in bamboo containers. It is mildly alcoholic, cloudy, slightly sour, and absolutely central to the social life of almost every tribe in Arunachal Pradesh. Offering apong to a guest is an act of welcome and trust. Refusing it is a significant social misstep. It is brewed differently by different tribes. The Adi's apong tastes different from the Nishis, which tastes different from the Monpas. Like wine and terroir, apong reflects the land and the hand that made it. Zan, a thick porridge made from millet or maize flour, served with meat curry and fermented cheese. It is the staple food of the Apatani people and is filling, nourishing, and warming in the mountain cold. Thukpa, Tibetan influenced noodle soup prevalent in Tawang and the other Buddhist communities of the northwest. A clear, warming broth with hand pulled noodles and vegetables or meat, the perfect antidote for Himalayan winter. Momos, steamed dumplings, again from the Tibetan traditions, filled with meat or vegetables, served with a fiery tomato chili dipping sauce. Found everywhere in Tawang and increasingly across the state. Arunachali food is not elaborate or refined in the way that restaurant cuisine aspires to be. It is honest, purposeful, and perfectly matched to its environment. It feeds people who work hard in cold mountains, and it is deeply good. Tawang, in the far northwest of the state, close to the borders with Bhutan and Tibet, Tawang is the crown jewel of Arunachal Pradesh. The approach road alone from Dirang, climbing through the Sela Pass at 4,176 meters past the frozen Sela Lake and down into the Tawang Valley is one of the great drives in India. The Tawang Monastery is immense, covering 2.5 acres at an elevation of 3,048 meters, housing over 450 monks, containing an 8-meter golden statue of the Buddha and a library of ancient manuscripts. It is the second largest Buddhist monastery in the world after Lhasa's Drepung Monastery. Standing in its courtyard in the early morning, with mist rolling through the valley below and the sound of the monks chanting drifting from the prayer halls, is an experience of rare and genuine power. Sela Pass, at 4,176 meters, this high altitude mountain pass is one of the great natural spectacles of northeastern India. The landscape above the tree line is utterly stark. Stone, snow, and sky. The Sela Lake beside the pass reflects the mountains in its surface when the wind is still. The pass is open year-round, and the new Sela tunnel means it is now reliable in all weather. But crossing the pass on a clear day, the old way, above the clouds, remains one of the most dramatic road experiences in the country. Ziro Valley, a UNESCO tentative World Heritage Site, the Ziro Valley is a broad, flat highland plateau about 1,500 meters above sea level, ringed by pine-covered hills and threaded through the rice paddies. The Apatani villages here, Hari, Hong, Bamin, Mudang, Tage, are extraordinary places where traditional houses on wooden stilts stand alongside the rice fields their occupants have farmed for centuries. In September each year, the valley hosts the Ziro Festival of Music, one of India's best independent music festivals, held outdoors against the backdrop of this spectacular landscape. Tribal and independent musicians perform together across 4 days and 4 nights. It is one of the most unusual and wonderful festival experiences in Asia. Namdapha National Park, in the far east of the state bordering Myanmar, this is one of the most biodiverse protected areas in India. The park covers over 1,985 square kilometers of intact subtropical and temperate forest. It is the only park in India where all four large cats, tiger, leopard, clouded leopard, and snow leopard, are known to coexist. Access is limited and the terrain is challenging, which makes it one of the least visited national parks in India and one of the most extraordinary for those who make the effort. Bomdila, a hill town and district headquarters in the western Kameng district, sitting at about 2,530 meters. Its monastery, apple orchards, and views of the Himalayan peaks make it a popular stopover on the road to Tawang. The Bomdila Monastery, formerly called Jense Garden Rabjiel Ling, is a working Buddhist center with prayer halls painted in rich blues and golds. Dirang, a charming small town on the Kameng River between Bomdila and the Sela Pass. A medieval dzong, a fortified Tibetan-style building, stands in the old quarter. The surrounding valley grows some of the finest apples and kiwi fruit in northeastern India. The Thani heartland, Alo and Along, in the West Siang district, this region is the heartland of the Adi tribe. Boat rides on the Siang River, village homestays, and the extraordinary landscape of the river gorge makes this one of the most rewarding and least touristed parts of the state. Arunachal Pradesh is a state where festivals are not calendar events, but living expressions of identity. Losar, Tibetan New Year, celebrated across January or February in Tawang and the Buddhist communities of the Northwest. The Torgya festival at Tawang Monastery, held over 3 days during Losar, features elaborate mask dances performed by monks. The Cham dances, in which performers wearing painted wooden masks and elaborate silk costumes enact stories from Buddhist mythology. It is visually stunning and spiritually charged. Ali Ai Ligang, the agricultural festival of the Adi people, held in March before the sowing season. It involves community feasting, the sharing of rice beer, singing, and a prayer to the earth for a good harvest. It is a festival of collective gratitude and collective hope. Neokum, the festival of the Nyishi people, held in February. Neokum celebrates the deities of nature and prays for peace, prosperity, and the well-being of the community. It involves elaborate rituals led by a priest called a Niebo, offerings of food and rice beer, and community dancing. Solang, the harvest festival of the Adi people, held in September. The Mithun, the semi-wild gaur, so central to Adi culture, plays a central role in these rituals. Solang is a time of thanksgiving, of community bonding, and of celebration of the year's agricultural bounty. The Ziro Music Festival, held in late September each year in Ziro Valley, not a traditional festival, but a contemporary one, and extraordinary for it. Independent music from across India and the world performed in one of the most beautiful natural settings imaginable, attended by music lovers who camp in the rice fields and wake up each morning to Himalayan air and bird song. It has become one of India's most beloved music events. The artistic traditions of Arunachal Pradesh are as diverse as its tribes. Weaving is perhaps the most universal art form across the state. Every tribe has its own textile tradition, distinct patterns, distinct colors, distinct techniques. The Adi weave in bold stripes of red, black, and white. The Apatani produce intricately patterned shawls. The Monpa work in the Tibetan tradition, producing rich brocades and woven carpets. These textiles are not decorative objects, they are identifiers of community, worn at festivals, given as gifts, at marriages, and buried with the dead. A trained eye can tell at a glance which tribe a person belongs to by the pattern of their shawl. Tanka painting. The Tibetan tradition of sacred scroll painting is practiced by Monpa artists in Tawang with some great skill. These paintings depict deities, mandalas, and scenes from Buddhist scripture in mineral pigments on cotton or silk. A fine tanka can take months to complete. Wood carving is practiced across the tribal regions, particularly among the Wancho and Nocte tribes, who carve elaborate figures of humans, animals, and spirits on the wooden posts of their traditional community halls, called morang, where young men of the village historically gathered for education and community life. Oral literature is the deepest artistic tradition of Arunachal Pradesh. Epics, creation myths, genealogies, love songs, and harvest chants have been passed from generation to generation without being written down. These oral traditions are now at risk as younger generations move to cities and adopt new languages. The work of preservation, recording, transcribing, translating is urgent and ongoing. Arunachal Pradesh has a small but passionate sporting culture. Boxing has produced state level champions, drawing on a tradition of physical toughness bred by the mountain environment. Archery, a skill historically essential for hunting, remains both a traditional practice and a competitive sport. Traditional games like Ponang, a communal dance sport of the Adi people, and various forms of wrestling and strength competition remain alive in rural communities. As infrastructure and connectivity improve, younger Arunachalis are increasingly participating in mainstream national sports. Football, cricket, badminton, and the state is producing players who compete at national youth levels. Most Indians, let alone people from outside the country, have never been to Arunachal Pradesh. The inner line permit requirement, the remoteness, the difficult terrain, and the limited infrastructure have kept visitor numbers low. Those who do go come back transformed. The most common thing people say after visiting is that they had no idea the landscape was this dramatic. No idea the cultural diversity was this rich. No idea our food was this interesting. No idea the people were this warm. There is also inevitably a political dimension. Arunachal Pradesh is a state that India holds firmly and China claims loudly. Every road built here, every tunnel opened, every army post upgraded is a statement in an ongoing geopolitical conversation. The people of Arunachal Pradesh, the tribes who have lived in these mountains for generations, often find themselves at the intersection of forces far larger than themselves. What Arunachal Pradesh wants most to be known for is not its disputes. It is its mountains, its monasteries, its rivers and forests, and the extraordinary diversity of its people. It wants to be known as the land where India begins its mornings, where the first light touches the Himalayan peaks and turns them gold before the rest of the country is even awake. It wants to be known as the land of the Mithun and the hornbill and the orchard, of momos eaten at a mountain monastery and rice beer shared in a tribal longhouse and music played in a rice field under the stars. It is all of those things, and it is worth every hour of the journey to reach it. Arunachal Pradesh, the land of the dawn-lit mountains, a state that borders 3 countries, speaks over 50 languages, houses over 26 tribes, holds one of the great monasteries of Buddhism, contains forests so biodiverse they beggar description, and begins India's day every single morning with the very first rays of light on this subcontinent. It is remote, it is challenging to reach, and it is absolutely worth it. Next Tuesday, we head south and west along the alphabet to Assam, the gateway to the northeast, threaded through by one of the world's mightiest rivers, famous all over the world for its tea, home to the one-horned rhinoceros, and alive with a culture that is entirely its own. That's next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Don't miss it. Please subscribe or follow the show wherever you're listening. Leave a rating if you can. Makes an enormous difference. And share this with someone who loves discovering India. I'm Ray. We've been to Arunachal Pradesh, the dawn-lit mountains. May you get there one day.